nobody told me at the time that whoever wins this fight is going to get a contract to go to the UFC.
I think it must be crazy to go into a fight because you're going in to a guy that's wanting to get there and smash you.
Yeah, I had my first Valley Tudor MMA fight at Caesar's Palace. My first experience of any sort of combat sport or anything like that. And as you said, yes, I got blixemed. The other thing was that my old man was watching. He said, "Are you sure this is like really what you want to do?"
You got the name of One Gear.
Yeah.
How did that name come about?
It's very similar to saying this dude just trains or he spars or whatever at one sort of level. He doesn't know what sort of calm down means or whatever.
Do you prepare anything beforehand? Is there like a routine that you do?
I got better at it because the anxiety pre-fight is a pretty big thing, and it got worse as the sort of the expectation and the pressure was on. But essentially, in the fights leading up to that, I sort of was able to deal with it and overcome. But the more sort of bright lights, sort of big city, it became a good deal of pre-match anxiety that I battled with.
Good stuff. So we've got Andrew One Gear van Zyl here today. Welcome, Andrew.
How's it going? Sean, thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah, no, it's always good seeing you. And just a little bit about who you are, Andrew. Andrew One Gear van Zyl was a multi-time EFC Heavyweight Champion, known for winning the title by defeating Ruan Potts and defending it against opponents like Wesley, Mostert and Jared Vanderaa. He retired in 2018 with a 19-5 record. Alongside your fighting career, you're also a teacher at Parktown Boys, balancing both roles with a lot of dedication and I'm sure a lot of spirit that goes behind that. But Andrew, thanks, man. And obviously, I want to chat to you about a lot on EFC, touch a bit on family, and then obviously your health and what you used to do to get fit. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is everybody that goes into EFC were all school fighters and guys that were like, don't mess with these guys, and these are the type of boys you don't mess with. And in actual fact, it's something, I guess, a little bit different. It's more a sport and more a career that a person like takes on.
Yeah, I think there are some misconceptions about mixed martial art or the guys that are involved in it, for sure. There are some rough characters in the sport, but I think you would find that these days people are professionals and they approach their professional sport as anybody would. So sort of the sideline stuff that comes along with fighters is maybe a misconception, but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, how did you get into it? What got you to jump into a ring and get blixemed? what was it?
So I'd sort of played all the sort of traditional sports at school to a relatively sort of high level, and I wanted to try something different. There were a couple of guys at school that I'd played rugby with, Neil Diesel and Denzel Waite. And they had started at Rodney King Streetfight Gym, which was in the Gowrie at the time in a scout hall. Yeah. And they said, come down and give this a go. And I remember the first sort of a 6-week program that Rodney King ran was called the couch potato class, and they basically gave you an introduction to stand up to boxing and kickboxing, and then to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which was pretty new at that stage.
Yeah,
it was a Jeet Kune Do a school. They had started to sort of branch out into other martial arts. Rodney King was a Muay Thai guru at the time, also a boxer. But he started to bring in the Machado brothers to bring Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu into South Africa. He was one of the pioneers. There were other guys that were fighting out of Cape Town gyms and gyms in Durban, Nova Gym, the other one in the Western Cape. But they had all started to practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that was sort of the introduction into South Africa around 97, 98.
And then obviously you started getting into it. And can you remember your first fight?
Yeah, I can. So as I said, Rodney was quite a pioneer. So all the other big sort of gyms that exist now, many of the people that are involved in running those gyms or starting those gyms, they all started, well, in Johannesburg anyway, at Rodney King Streetfight Systems. and he started mixed martial arts as in competing. Yeah, I think he partnered with a company, UFSA. That was the first one. They had MMA fights in Wembley out in the south.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think they picked up some other promoters or partners, and they put shows on at what was then Caesar's Palace, and then they obviously changed the name. And I had my first Vale Tudo or MMA fight at Caesar's Palace in a boxing ring, so it wasn't in a cage. Yeah. More so around Pride rules than it was around UFC, which is also sort of at its infancy at the time. I fought a guy named Kobus Haysamen.
Yeah.
And he was a professional kickboxer. And it was my first bout at heavyweight. I was 96 or 7 kilos at the time. Yeah. And he was probably closer to 100 kilos. But what I didn't know is that he probably had 100 odd professional kickboxing fights. So yeah, it was wild. It was very, very wild. So my first experience of any sort of combat sport or anything like that. And as you said, yes, I got blixemed for the first round at least. He had limited ground skills. I'd been training I'd been wrestling and doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu probably for about 8 months or 9 months. But yeah, I closed the space, got on top and won that fight by armbar. Still like a really, really good memory because it asks a lot of questions about who you are, your character, all of those kinds of things. Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, and that's true. But that was a good point in my progression as an MMA athlete. And then promotions changed. I fought again in Johannesburg in Randburg there's a stadium out there. I fought again in a boxing ring, sort of Pride rules. Shahida Neef was the guy that I fought. And then 2 years after that, UFA started a promotion. Brad Block had 2 other partners that held MMA fights in a cage. Carousel, one about there, and then we had another fight at Carnival City, and I picked up another win there. That was 2004.
Yes.
So yeah, a good 5 years before the EFC even was a thing. So yeah.
Yes, and that so during that time, did you win every single fight? Is that start getting more and more motivated to realize, yes, I actually can do this?
Yeah, at the time I was still at varsity, so I mean I was studying and still playing rugby and still coaching and still doing all of those kinds of things. So it was maybe less of a professional approach to it, but it was something that I was doing, that I was keen on, that I had time to do. Yeah, and then 2005 I got a job, and that's my sort of journey sort of was sidelined a little bit because I was fully involved in work that I was doing. I was still training. Probably not as hard as I should have been, but I was still involved in combat sports. In that period between 2005 and 2009. So yeah.
Yes, and then obviously you had work responsibilities, family absolutely. Responsibilities,
yes,
and and then you still were fighting, but during that time.
So at that time, end of 2004 was the last time I fought. I graduated from Wits University at the end of 2004, and I got a job in 2005. And I opened a smallish gym at Parktown where I was working, and I had a whole lot of students that came in and trained with me, probably about 5 or 6 guys that were training. So we were doing all of those things, but I think the MMA scene in South Africa still continued. There were various different promotions that had different fights, but I wasn't involved in those.
Yeah.
I was really off the boil. 2004, I got a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with Chris Harder, and then I stopped doing BJJ with a gi on and all of those kinds of things, and my MMA sort of fell by the wayside until Obviously, the the EFC put on their first show in 2008, 2009. So, yeah.
So you started in EFC in 2009?
End of 2009, yeah.
And that run was up until 2018?
18, yeah.
And is that where the 19.5 is? So you did 24 fights in that time frame?
Yeah. So wow, at the 2009, a good mate of mine and training partner, Denzel Waite, was getting back into MMA. He had also come through and sort of trained in those early years, 2003, 2004. He had competed in those events as well, and he was competing, and he was like, listen, let's go to an EFC event. And 2009, I watched EFC probably 2 or 3 at the Dome, and I was like, listen, this could be quite lucrative. The EFC by any sort of standard of production is up there with the UFC. So I mean, the owners went through to a UFC, and they saw how this production was run. And they wanted to do the same thing in South Africa. So, the first one I went to, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I watched the heavyweight fights in that event. I think it was EFC 3 or 4. I'm not 100% sure. But I was like, listen, I
want to get back.
I could probably do this.
Yeah.
I was still in good enough shape to be able to start to train and compete. Yeah. So I went back to training, back to BJ MMA and Bobby Karajanidis, and I started to work again.
Yeah.
End of 2009. The owners of the EFC wanted to see me a fight before they wanted to sign me. I don't think they were 100% sure. And I fought at another promotion. It was a bad boy promotion, Fight Stars or Fight Night, I can't remember, with Mark Stradham. And he allowed me to have a 1-fight contract. I fought a Ryan Gonzalez, and I won that by TKO in the second round. And then after that, the EFC said that they wanted to sign me, and I fought December 2009 against Raymond Ohana.
Was that your first EFC fight?
First EFC fight.
Okay. How was that feeling?
So yeah, it was
because that's crowds down. It's
pretty wild. Yeah. So as obviously I'd fought in sort of arenas and with crowds, but I mean that promotion was like top class, and it was really something cool and special. Yeah, I fought Raymond Ohana at heavyweights. So the heavyweights are from 95 kilograms all the way up to 120. And I was probably in at about 114, 115 at the time.
Okay.
And Raymond Ohana probably came in just above 94 kilos. Really in shape guy, pretty decent athlete, some decent stand-up, but I think his ground game was pretty limited. Yeah. So I'd won that fight in under a minute. So yeah. So it was a tough outing for me, but it was good for me to get out there and experience it.
Do you prepare anything beforehand? Is there like a routine that you do?
So I got better at it because the anxiety pre-fight is a pretty big thing. And it got worse as the sort of the expectation and the pressure was on. Yeah, I could talk to that a little bit later, but essentially in the fights leading up to that, I sort of was able to deal with it and sort of overcome.
Yeah.
But the more sort of bright lights, sort of big city it became, there's a good deal of pre-match anxiety that I battled with. I got involved with a hypnotherapist, and from there I worked through quite a bit of visualization with her, and that helped my sort of pre-fight anxiety, and it really enhanced my performances sort of post that.
So what is it? What did you used to do exactly during that time? Did you used to think about it, or just
so as the brain works, so your level of sort of consciousness, your brain doesn't understand the difference between that and something that you imagine.
Yeah.
If you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So to try and access your subconscious, you can use various different methods, but one way is to go to a hypnotherapist. So she'll go through a process, and put you into a state of relaxation, essentially. And she will put you through your pre-fight sensory episode.
Yeah.
So you'll think pre-fight, what does it smell like? What does it sound like? What is it?
Is this just before the fight, or is it a few
That's
days?
I was doing in a 6-week fight camp. I was doing one a week, and then
Oh, so it's a whole build-up.
yeah.
It's not just
Yeah.
5 minutes before.
No.
Okay.
And then I would sort of fight week. I would do 2, probably or on fight day, depending on where it was. They did Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturday nights. But I would go in, and then we would prep for it in that way.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a 45-minute session that you can come out and sort of drop your anxiety level and prepare your mind for what's coming. Sportsmen have been using those kinds of visualization methodologies for a long time, but it really did help my anxiety because, as you know, you when you get into those kinds of environments, your performance can be severely limited if you are overstimulated in that way. It affected me in the first Ruan Potts fight, very much so in the Frenchman. It'll come to me. Yeah. Those were two fights where I was definitely stimulated going into those competitions, and my performance was affected quite drastically. Those were two. One was a title shot, and the other was a title defense that I'd lost. Even with the visualization and the hypnotherapy was kind of tough. But yeah.
Yeah. And then you got the name of One Gear.
Yeah.
How did that name come about?
So
was it people that just said you in a gear, or maybe you could explain why it is One Gear and how it came about?
As I said, I started training at Rodney King Street Tough system, and just through sort of moving through the ranks, it's very similar to saying, this dude just like trains or he spars or whatever at one sort of level. He doesn't know what sort of calm down means or whatever, and it obviously was more in terms of when I was a little bit younger. So he would always say, "Oh, Andrew, you've only got one gear,"
Yeah.
and from that it's sort of stuck. Yeah.
Jeez. So did that One Gear name, was that something that people just gave you, or was it something that?
So it was only a nickname or fight nickname that I applied in the EFC.
Okay.
I never used it before that, and it was something that my coach at the time, Bobby, thought maybe we should go there because it was a name that I'd carried from when I was quite young, so in my early 20s.
And then you're also known for a steel jaw, right?
Yeah.
And that was mainly about, obviously you had taken a lot of knocks that people thought you should be laying on the floor.
Not getting hit in the jaw, though, I suppose is one way to avoid that. But it's obviously something that people say, or promoters will try and hype fights up with, and that anybody, physiologically, if you get hit in the right place, it doesn't matter what kind of jaw you have, you're going to get knocked out. But it was something that the guys in the EFC gave me, or a name that they gave me. I don't know why.
What is the one fight that you remember the most?
Sure.
The fight that stands out above all fights.
What winning?
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of my journey, I mentioned the one against Cowboy, and it sticks in my mind because it was only sort of after the fact that I figured out that this guy was, he was training with Ernesto Hoost in Holland. I mean, like training with really top K1 guys. And only after the fact that I figured this thing out. The guy had been a parabat in the military before, like, you know what I mean? Like
next level.
Mental, and you go to the weigh-in and you've never experienced anything like this before, and to go out and as you said, I did get hammered in that fight, and the rules are different in Pride FC is a Japanese promotion that sort of came up with the UFC, but the rules are different in that you can kick a grounded opponent in the head, and those rules applied at the time.
Jeez.
And I still remember sort of being in an engagement on the ground, and he sort of stood up, and I remember sort of practicing switching onto my butt cheek and getting my hand up, and he just walked around and booted me in the head. And
Yes.
at the end of it, or while that was happening, you were like, "Listen, I better get up," you know. So all of those things stick to me. The other thing was that my old man was watching, and after the fight, you had taken quite a bit of punishment, and I sat down to him, and he said, like, "Are you sure this is like really what you want to do?" But for me, it was good because our gym had a rep. And this was our first sort of competition where all the guys, all the fighters in the gym were fighting. And as it had turned out, like the guys that were expected to do really well didn't. And I was myself and Liam McLennan we were two new guys that were competing. He was also a middleweight EFC champ. At the time, and we had won, both of us had won to my memory, but the sort of more experienced guys and the guys that were meant to do damage lost, at least in the gym it also sort of gave me a little bit more rep, which was cool.
Yes.
And I was 2001. Yeah, man, I was 19.
Jeez.
Yeah, 19.
And but you still won that fight, eh?
Yeah. That sticks. That one sticks in my mind. Obviously, I've fought Ruan Potts 3 times. I lost the first. I won the second and lost the third. That second fight was really good for me because he had sort of been tearing his way through the EFC and people were saying, oh well, like this level is way too high. Nobody's gonna have the sort of minerals to beat this guy. And I outworked him and had won a unanimous 5-round fight against him, which was really cool. And then like a little bit later, title defenses against Mostert, Elvis Moyo the second time, Jared Vanderaa. Those were all really, really good fights for me, and that stick in my mind.
Yeah. And is there any fights that you actually went into going, I don't know if I'm ready for this one?
That's a really, really good question because I don't think I've ever taken a fight not being in a proper physical conditioning to engage. You know what I mean? So I'd taken short notice fights, like the Elvis Moyo fight, but I'd fought a guy named Tony Mustard, English guy named Tony Mustard, probably 2 weeks before I took that fight, and then probably 2 weeks before the fight was supposed to happen. I took it on short notice, but I was still fit. So I would never take a fight if I wasn't physically ready to take that fight.
Yes. No, I don't know. I think it must be crazy to go into a fight because you're going in to a guy that's wanting to get there and smash you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that mindset and that mind frame that you've got to be in to be like, this is what I'm getting myself involved in. That must be like like you're saying, the anxiety levels and everything they go through there.
I look back at it now, like I'm 44 odd. So, I like look back at it, I will watch those videos and I'm like, yo.
What did I let myself in?
What were you thinking? You know what I mean? But at the time, like I tried as much as I possibly could to live a professional athlete's life and try to behave as much as I could like a professional athlete at the time. So eating proper, training proper, getting your psychology right, working through your meditations and visualization in terms of prepping yourself for these competitions. So all of like the culmination of that creates a sort of readiness that's it's hard to explain.
Yeah. But Andrew, you're very humble. I mean, the point is you got to the very top of EFC in Africa.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you were known as the most dangerous man in Africa. I know you laugh about it, but
Probably not, but yeah.
but you got to that point of where how many times did you hold the belt?
3.
3 times, eh?
Yeah.
And you dominated for quite some time.
Yes, like the heavyweight division in South Africa, it was, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was easier for somebody with ground skills or the ability to wrestle and to ground fight to win and to hold on to belts, because for the most part, and the majority of EFC heavyweights lacked a total game. They were strikers for the most point, still dangerous men. They were more vulnerable if you could get them onto their backs or get them off their feet. So a lot of the time that was the sort of name of the game. It helped that I started wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I was 20, where some of these guys, they came into the EFC and they had 3-4 fight win streaks, but fighting against strikers, guys with limited game plans who didn't put pressure on them at different levels of fighting, which was always, something that I could work towards.
What was, in terms of the fighting, what was the easier fight for you of that art? Let's say, was it easier for you to be against a kickboxer, or was it more difficult to be against a guy that's a wrestler? Which form of art for you was like, yes, this is a...
So in the beginning, a lot of the African fighters would have a level of judoku, so that their judo would be pretty good, but for the most part, they were strikers. Ruan Potts had a more total game, fought on the ground, had judo, had started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so he was a versed opponent that was a little bit more difficult to unpack. But not to say that stand-up fighters were easy. So I fought, for example, Elvis Moyo 2013, I think, or 2014. Yeah. And it was his first MMA fight, coming from a boxing background.
Yes.
And he's a boxer.
Yeah. I remember watching that fight.
Yeah.
Yes, he could hit hard.
Yeah, but I mean, fighting him the second time around was a hell of a lot more of a task, because he had worked on his conditioning for MMA, and he had looked to try as best as he possibly could in the short amount of time he was training to try and stop the takedown. So I won the first bout against him in a minute 50, and the second bout went to the 4th round.
Yes,
so he had advanced obviously in his ability. So no easy fights really, but guys that had a total game was a little bit more difficult. Yeah.
So Andrew, you also as a EFC fighter, and everybody knows you, and you walk around, people know, oh, this is Andrew. How many guys come up to you trying to give you shit? It's like, if I can hit him out, then I'll be the hero of tonight's party. Did that happen quite often?
And there's a question that gets asked quite a bit, but once you start to get a bit more of a sort of public persona, I try and not be in environments where those kinds of things could happen.
Yeah.
So and by that time I was already in my 30s, so I shouldn't have been hanging around nightclubs in any case. It happened a lot more when I was younger, but a little bit later I'd try not to put myself into those positions.
But you got to be very, I guess, it must be very difficult when a guy's, and you probably did have those incidents even later on in your career, where there was guys giving you or chirping you, and you've got to be quite controlled.
So I mean, you're a contracted fighter, and I mean, anything that could sort of sour or sully the name of the EFC would result in you losing your contract essentially. Yeah. So you had to keep that in mind. I mean, I don't think they would have too much of a problem if you were forced to defend yourself. But if you went out looking for trouble, I think that would have been more of a problem.
Yeah. And was there any incident, big incident, where you were like, I'm biting my teeth right now.
No. I try to remove myself from those situations as much as possible. Yeah.
Good. And then obviously you're a school teacher.
Yes.
I mean, so how do your students react to having a professional fighter as their teacher? I guess they shut up, right?
No, man. I suppose I went to school in a very similar environment, and it's yeah. I think it was good for the boys to have somebody like that as a teacher, and in some cases like mentor and those kinds of things, because you're also trying to as much as possible be a positive influence on them, and to model or role model the right kinds of behaviors, the right kinds of principles and discipline that you expect from them. Yeah. So it was a good sort of like working model. Yeah, obviously. Everybody has, or most teachers will run into students that sort of are annoying or would look to try and tick you off. But for the most part, I think it was good. It was positive for a lot of kids that I engaged with in that. So yeah.
Is there any life lessons that you've learned out of fighting in EFC that you brought into the classroom to teach kids? Discipline or
100%. So for me, it was like martial arts was, and you could use anything as a vehicle for bettering yourself.
Yeah.
Lots of people do different things and get the same kind of sort of outcome. So yeah, as a vehicle for your own self discovery, and then also to try and be a positive role model. The EFC and essentially created an awesome platform for me to be able to do those kinds of things. So yeah, life lessons, work hard, be disciplined, have integrity. A lot of it is more sort of applicable in a sports sense. So I coached first team rugby for a long time at Parktown, and those were definitely things that I could bring into working with young kids or young boys in this case.
And was it always a dream to be a teacher?
A dream? No. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do after school. I liked sport, and I thought, well, I may as well go to university and try and figure out my way there. And when I went to the physical education department, as it was at the time, that degree doesn't exist anymore. So sort of education has changed since then. I was sold an idea that I would be able to, I could become a professional sportsman and work with high level athletes and all those sorts of things. And that sounded pretty promising to me at the time. But what they didn't tell you was that it was a pathway into education.
Yeah.
And at the end of my fourth year, I was like, well, I don't really have a job. I don't really know what to do. I thought maybe I'll go to the business school and try and pick up like a postgraduate diploma. And I was too late. And it was January already. And my dad had already said to me, listen, you've graduated now. You're going to graduate out of my checkbook as well. So go find yourself a job. I had lots of good mates at Parktown Boys that I student coached and those kinds of things. And Raymond Ohana, a good mate of mine at the time, he was a first team rugby coach and a sports director there. He approached Mr. Tom Clark and said, listen, Andrew Van Zyl is looking for a job. Can you make a plan?
Yeah.
And he said, yes. You can come, you can start to teach there. But they didn't really have a post for me, so they were trying to find things for me to do. And as that progressed, I got sort of more involved, and it's been a epic journey since, man.
And what is the most rewarding thing for you as being a teacher?
What about education? Wow, there are lots. There are lots. So, I don't want to sound like it's cliche, but working with youngsters is a privilege, especially to see some of the sort of lives that some of these boys come from and live. Not all the boys that I work with are affluent and those kinds of things. I obviously have worked with a lot of of kids from fortunate homes and those kinds of things. But a lot of guys, come from difficult circumstances, and to see them to see them grow and take on life and succeed is rewarding. It's super rewarding. So I think that's probably one of my biggest things.
And any future goals that you've got planned right now?
Sure.
Obviously, you've got a family and a little boy, and
So my wife and I started maybe a little bit later. So my son is 4 years old. And I'm really enjoying him at this moment in time.
Is he going to be an EFC fighter?
I don't know. He's quite soft, like his mom.
She's got to love that.
But no, I'm happy to try and help him in any sort of direction he goes. I just want him to be active and physical, and he can figure those things out for himself when he gets there. So it doesn't stop me from taking him into the gym and trying to influence him in that way. And he loves getting onto the mat and messing around there. So that's.
I see you guys do
cool.
Get on the mat.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And is he enjoying that?
He's 4, so it's all about play at this moment in time. And that's good enough for this moment in time, I guess. Yeah.
What advice would you give somebody trying to juggle multiple careers or passions?
I suppose things need to take priorities at different times in your life. And you need to be quite strict in sort of compartmentalizing those aspects that are priorities at your time, and giving them your energies, and finding a good support system. That's probably the other one. So if you can find people that can help you in your endeavors, and to reach goals, I think that's probably the next step. So find supportive people, prioritize correctly, and once you've set those kinds of goals, then go for them.
I mean, it's just amazing to me, the whole structure of the fighting side, because people see it as like some people see it as a negative thing. It's like you're trying to get your frustration out, and we've gotten to understand that it's really becoming an actual sport and an art in what a person's doing. Just any takeouts for people in regards to just normal sport. Like, I mean, I feel, for one, that people that do sport achieve a lot more in life. And I think it's that camaraderie of having people with you, or whether you're doing it as a team and learning team spirit, or whether you're doing it as an individual. I'm sure a lot of times you felt very alone in terms of your training and your fights, because it's not really a team sport, although you've got everybody around you supporting you.
So for me, fighting is the end product is you, but there are a lot of people that are putting huge amounts of effort into your time in the lights. So coaches, training partners, dietitians, all of those kinds of, like the whole the hypnotherapist. It is a team sport. Plus the group of people that you're obviously working with. I would advise people that are doubtful about trying something new, or trying combat sports in some way. You don't have to compete. It's not there's not a directive that you have to compete. But I think it's almost like swimming. It's a life skill to be able to defend yourself. Even if you never have to use it, it's better to know how to do it than not. So I would promote that combat sports for anyone, even for young kids. I mean, all of the good stuff that comes out of sport, particularly discipline, hard work, resilience, all of those things, those can be learned quite young. And there are so many great gyms opening up with so much information and knowledge, with good coaches out there that people can actually start young. So, in terms of that, I would really advocate people getting involved in martial arts, not per se to have to compete, but to learn things about yourself.
Yeah.
Because it is, as you say, there is an individual aspect about it. It's you versus somebody else. And you learn lots about yourself in that way.
And for any youngsters going into it right now, what would you say to them?
You're not going to be a millionaire off the bat. And that it's harder than you think. So I started a one-gear grappling a couple of years ago with the idea that I would have a captive audience at Parktown, and that I would have a lot of guys or students that would want to come out and train with me. It was hard going. Like I've got quite a nice group of youngsters that train with me now. The majority of the people that wanted to get involved were actually older, so they were students or they were teachers. But sort of started building my business around that, or at least it allowed me to stay involved with martial arts or mixed martial arts. It allowed me to teach, allows me to get on the mat and be physical and all of those kinds of things. But it's harder than it seems. I mean, if you kids these days or have this mindset of like instantly becoming great at something, and the mindset around that is or something you need to check yourself with is the fact that it takes a bit of time to cultivate different skills, and yeah, absolutely. If you dedicate it and those things, the extras will come, the money will come, the fame and everything else associated will come. But it takes a bit of time.
Just last question quickly on all this now is EFC is where you hit the top of it. Were you ever approached by UFC or looking at going to UFC?
So the Potts, the third fight I had with Ruan Potts, I held the belt and I lost it to him. Yeah. The UFC was interested in signing a heavyweight fighter from South Africa. Yeah. And nobody told me at the time that, listen, whoever wins this fight is going to get a contract to go to the UFC. Yeah. So Ruan and I think he was a year or 2 years older than I was at the time. I was 30. 30 or 31, 30. Yeah. And he beat me, and he got the contract to go across.
Okay.
So we know what happened subsequent to that. He didn't shoot the lights out at the end of the day. But I think he was walking into something he didn't understand, and from there, I think they were really reluctant to sign more African fighters. But the likes of Don Madge, the likes of Dricus, who were the other guys? Gareth McLennan. I can't forget about him. Those guys all sort of paved the way for more African fighters to get signed by the UFC, to get realized. Unfortunately for me, I think it happened when I was 30 or 31 and not in my early 20s as it did for a lot of the other guys.
Yeah.
Which I'm not making excuses, but it made that a little bit more difficult. So in about 2016 to end of 2015, I was very keen to try and get onto another promotion, either in the Middle East or in Europe. And those were very, very difficult to come by. I think promoters were quite reluctant to sign a 30-something-year-old heavyweight from South Africa who only ever fought fights in South Africa, to come across and compete there. I think the potential for that was there, but I think I'd sort of missed the boat a little bit, to be really honest. And it would have been cool for me, and something that maybe that's a regret of mine, that I wasn't able to go overseas and compete.
No, but I mean, you did exceptionally well anyway. I mean, you definitely got to the very top of your sport over here. And so, I mean, you've done astonishing. And I think, obviously, if you look at I mean, Dricus has really put a lot of the stuff on the map right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Put South Africa on the map.
yeah.
But in saying that, there are other pioneers that sort of, came before that.
Yeah.
As I said, Don Madge, his career he left the UFC and then I think went to PFL. I'm not sure where it went now, but there are other guys that are fighting in amazing promotions and flying the South African flag real high. Obviously, Dricus is sort of at the pinnacle of that,
Yes.
and he has changed MMA for South Africans. Our ideas about the sport, our spectatorship. He brought the sort of culture of South Africa and sort of Springbok rugby and all of those very powerful South African things into the viewers and into supporters and all those things, and I think that's pretty amazing.
No, but Andrew, I mean, you're a great family man. I know you personally. You're a great family man. You love the kids at the school. You love what you're doing at the school, and you've done exceptionally well. So well done on
Thanks, Sean.
everything you've done.
Oh man, it's awesome.
What we do on this podcast is the previous person
Yes,
asks a question
yes,
without knowing who the next person is.
sure.
And the question that's been asked to you
Yeah.
is, what is the one book every person should read that would change their life and why?
World War Z.
World War Z.
World War Z. Yes, it's about a zombie apocalypse, essentially. How humanity deals with this issue of the sort of living dead, and how society has to change to try and adapt to it. It was a really cool book. People think it might be funny, but it speaks to the real practicalities of what might happen if there was this zombie outbreak and this zombie apocalypse. Brad Pitt was in a movie, but the book is a hell of a lot different.
Yeah.
And it brings in quite a bit of real history as sort of backdrops to how to deal with the change of humanity and those kinds of things. It's actually quite an interesting and real book.
Awesome.
Give it a go.
Andrew, it was absolutely awesome having you. And thanks
Awesome.
for your time. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, Sean. Thank you, buddy.
Lekker wel, bit.
Cool.